The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah has accused Saudi Arabia of declaring war on his country days after the Lebanese Prime Minister, Saad al-Hariri, announced his resignation in the Saudi capital. Hassan Nasrallah accused Riyadh of detaining Saad al-Hariri and forcing him to resign as Lebanon's Prime Minister to destabilize the country. And he also accused the Saudis of inciting Israel against Lebanon.
In
short, it is clear that Saudi Arabia and Saudi officials have declared war on Lebanon and on Hezbollah in Lebanon. But I have to say this is a war on Lebanon.
Meanwhile, the US Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, has warned against using Lebanon for proxy conflicts following a crisis triggered by the resignation of its Prime Minister. Mr. Tillerson said he'd received assurances that Saad al-Hariri was not imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. Well, Hanin Haddad is visiting fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy and editor of Lebanon's Now News website. So what, for her, is the significance of what Hassan Nasrallah has said?
Hassan Nasrallah spoke twice after Hariri's resignation, and in both cases, he blamed Saudi Arabia for what's happening because he basically considers that Hariri is under house arrest. He said it very clearly today, and he blames Saudi Arabia for detaining the Lebanese prime minister. That's basically his stance. That's also the president's stance.
Does he have evidence for the idea that the Saudis are holding him in some shape or form?
No, of course, there's no evidence, and there's no evidence of the contrary. No one really knows. But Hassan Nasrallah's statement really is not just about this. Simply, if he accepts Hariri's resignation, it means that they have to go ahead and pick the next prime minister. And no substantial Sunni leader in Lebanon is going to replace Hariri at this point. So this means that Hezbollah will have to choose a weak Sunni figure in order to come as prime minister. And this is a problem for them. Why? Because although it's not a problem doing that, constitutionally they can do that, and at one point maybe they can manage to get some politicians to their side to get someone like Najib Mikati or someone else. But this means that the next government will be a Hezbollah government. And this is a problem for Hezbollah because Hariri, despite all the compromises and everything that he's done to satisfy Hezbollah, he was still not a Hezbollah candidate. Hariri is the son of Rafi al-Hariri. Hariri has a strong popular base still, despite everything. And Hezbollah needed that for cover.
I was going to say, clearly, if the next government, to use your phrase, if the next government is a Hezbollah government, clearly there are significant implications for how other countries in the region would react to that.
Exactly. Not only in the region, internationally as well, which means that sanctions will be stronger from the U.S. sanctions, Gulf sanctions, even, Western countries in general will be looking at Lebanon as a Hezbollah state, not as a national unity government the way it was. So, yes, it's a problem for them.
And how does that play out in the wider context of what is currently going on between Riyadh and Tehran?
It's not really a Lebanese issue. It is a regional issue. And it's part of a number of steps that lead to an escalation between Iran and Saudi Arabia and the Gulf in general. Hariri's resignation came from Riyadh, and this carries a very important significance to it, which means it's a regional, it's not a local issue. And I think they've come to realize at one point that the U.S., the Trump administration, has been doing a lot of rhetoric about confronting Iran in the region, but nothing really is happening. And a lot of focus has been going to Iraq at one point, maybe supporting Abadi by the U.S., but Syria has been completely ignored.
A word then about the American reaction. The United States supports the stability of Lebanon, is opposed to any actions that could threaten that stability. That was part of Rex Tillerson's statement. Do you expect to hear more from the Americans in the coming days?
We might hear more, but we haven't really heard specific statements from the White House or from other officials. And I think what the Saudis are trying to do with this is because they're worried about this recent developments in Syria, and they also know that the war against ISIS is almost complete. So the timing is interesting because I think that what they're trying to get from the U.S. today is to shift its mission and its composition in order to become a coalition to fight Iran in the region.
That was Hanin Haddad from the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. You're listening to Weekend from the BBC World Service.